Someone has already manipulated you today. And the worst part is you probably didn't even notice it, because real manipulation doesn't feel like control. It doesn't feel aggressive. It doesn't feel like someone is trying to dominate you. It feels normal. It feels natural. Sometimes it even feels like connection, like comfort, like finally being understood. And that's exactly why it works so well. Because you don't question something that feels right. You don't defend yourself against something that feels familiar. And you definitely don't expect that the thing making you feel safe might also be the thing slowly influencing you. Think about it. Have you ever met someone, and within minutes it felt like you've known them forever? Like they just get you. Like they understand things about you that other people never noticed. And in that moment, it feels amazing. It feels rare. It feels special. But what if that feeling wasn't random? What if it was created? What if someone was paying attention not to connect with you, but to learn you, to map your reactions, your emotions, your patterns, so they can guide them later without you even realizing it? Because manipulation doesn't start with control. It starts with attention. The kind of attention that feels deeper than normal. The kind that makes you open up faster than you usually would. The kind that makes you trust sooner than you should. And once that trust is there, everything becomes easier. And the shift doesn't happen all at once. It's not obvious. It's not dramatic. It's subtle. Almost invisible. It begins in small moments. You start thinking about them more than usual, replaying conversations in your head, wondering what they meant even when nothing seemed unclear. You check your phone more often. You notice their tone, their timing, their energy. And without realizing it, your emotional state begins to depend on how they show up. If they're warm, you feel good. If they're distant, something feels off, and you can't fully explain why. And that's where it starts. Not with control, but with emotional dependency. And then something even more subtle begins to happen. You start adjusting yourself, not because they told you to, not because they asked you to change, but because something inside you wants to keep things good, wants to avoid tension, wants to maintain that connection. So you think twice before speaking. You soften your opinions. You hold back certain thoughts. You filter what you say. And over time, you become more careful, more aware of their reactions than your own. And here's the part most people miss. It doesn't feel like you're losing control. It feels like you're protecting something valuable. The connection. The closeness, the feeling of being understood. And because you don't want to lose that, you adapt. You adjust. You change in small ways that don't feel significant in the moment. But over time, those small changes start to add up. And slowly your focus shifts from yourself to them, what they feel, what they think, how they might respond. And that's where your power begins to fade. Not because someone took it from you, but because your attention moved away from you. The third sign is guilt, but not the obvious kind. Not someone blaming you directly, but the subtle kind. The kind that forms inside you without being spoken out loud. They don't accuse you. They don't start arguments. They don't raise their voice. Instead, they shift emotionally. You cancel a plan and they become quieter. You say no and their energy changes. You set a boundary and they seem disappointed. And now you feel it, that pressure, that disc, and the more that happens, the harder it becomes to see what's really going on. Because now you're inside the interaction, not observing it. You're reacting instead of analyzing. You're feeling instead of questioning. And that's exactly where manipulation works best. In that space where everything feels normal, where nothing seems obviously wrong, but something still feels slightly off. And most people ignore that feeling because it's not clear, because it's not logical, because everything else seems fine. So they move on. They brush it off. They tell themselves it's nothing. But that feeling doesn't disappear. It stays quietly in the background. And over time, those small moments begin to connect. They form patterns. And those patterns start shaping how you think, how you feel, how you respond. And once your feelings are influenced, your decisions begin to change. And once your decisions change, your behavior follows. And once your behavior changes, something deeper begins to shift. Your identity, the way you see yourself, the way you trust yourself, the way you interpret reality. And by the time you notice it, if you notice it at all, you're no longer reacting the way you used to. You're more careful, more hesitant, more dependent on how someone else shows up. And that's the real goal. Not to control what you do directly, but to slowly reshape how you think, how you feel, and how you see yourself, without you ever realizing when it started. So before we even talk about the obvious signs, there's something you need to understand. Manipulation doesn't begin loudly. It begins subtly. And the more subtle it is, the more powerful it becomes. Because anything obvious can be resisted. Anything direct can be questioned. But something that feels like your own thought, your own feeling, your own decision goes unnoticed. And what goes unnoticed becomes control. And now that you understand that, now you're ready to see what most people miss. The signs that someone is influencing you without you even realizing it. And this is where things start to become clearer, but only if you slow down enough to notice. Not all at once. Not in a way that immediately makes sense, but in patterns. In repeated moments that feel small on their own, but start to connect over time. In reactions that feel slightly off. In emotions that don't fully match the situation. In thoughts that don't feel entirely like your own. And if you really pay attention, you begin to realize something important. This isn't random. This isn't coincidence. This is influence happening in real time, shaping how you feel, how you react, and eventually how you see yourself. The first sign is how quickly they seem to understand you. Almost too quickly. You share something personal, something you don't usually tell people, and they respond in a way that feels almost perfect. Not just supportive, not just kind, but precise. Like they know exactly what to say to make you feel seen, heard, and understood. And it feels incredible. Like finally someone gets you without you having to explain everything. But real understanding takes time. It builds slowly through consistency, shared experiences, and repeated interaction. So when someone seems to get you instantly, it's not always connection. Sometimes it's careful observation. They're studying you, learning your emotional triggers, your needs, your insecurities, your desires, not just to connect with you, but to understand how to move you. The second sign is mirroring, but not in an obvious way. Not just repeating your words, but reflecting your identity back to you. Your interests, your beliefs, your sense of humor, your emotional tone, even your way of thinking. And suddenly everything feels aligned. Everything feels easy. You agree more. You laugh at the same things. You feel like you're finally talking to someone on your wavelength, but it's almost too perfect, too smooth. Because real people are different. They have friction. They disagree. They have their own perspective. But here it feels like looking into a mirror. And that familiarity creates trust faster than it should. And once trust is there, your guard drops without you even noticing it. I'm for it. That need to explain yourself. So you apologize. You justify your decisions. You try to fix something that wasn't wrong in the first place. And that's how it works. They don't give you guilt. They create the conditions where you give it to yourself. The fourth sign is when your reality starts to feel unstable. You remember something clearly, a conversation, a detail, a specific moment, but they remember it differently, and they're calm about it, confident, certain, so certain that you begin to question yourself. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I overreacted. Maybe I got it wrong. And over time, this creates a shift. You begin trusting your own perception less, and theirs more. And that's not simple confusion. That's control through doubt. Because once you stop trusting your own memory, you start depending on someone else's version of reality. The fifth sign is when choices don't feel like real choices anymore. They say things like, "It's up to you," or "Do whatever you want," but something underneath it feels heavy. There's a tone, a pause, an unspoken expectation. And you feel it even if you can't explain it, so you adjust. You choose what avoids tension, what keeps things smooth, what feels safest. And over time, you stop making decisions freely because every choice feels like it has a hidden consequence attached to it. The sixth sign is emotional inconsistency. They pull away at the exact moment you open up. You share something vulnerable, something real. And suddenly there's distance, silence, no response, no reaction. And when they come back, everything is normal, like nothing happened. But something inside you has changed. Now you hesitate. Now you think twice before opening up again. Now you become more careful, but at the same time, more attached. Because inconsistency creates tension, and tension creates emotional dependency. Your brain starts craving resolution, craving clarity, craving their response. The seventh sign is the gradual weakening of your trust in your own emotions. Phrases like, "You're overthinking," "You're too sensitive," or "It's not that serious" begin to appear more often. And at first it feels like they're helping you stay calm, like they're grounding you. But over time it does the opposite. You begin to question your reactions. You minimize your feelings. You filter your emotions before expressing them. And slowly your inner voice becomes quieter, while theirs becomes louder, until you're no longer sure what you actually feel without their input. The eighth sign is emotional exhaustion. You feel drained after being around them. Not always. Sometimes it feels intense, even exciting. But after it ends, you feel tired, heavy, like something has been taken from you. And you can't fully explain why. Nothing obvious happened. No conflict, no argument, just a feeling. And that's your body reacting to a level of pressure your conscious mind hasn't fully processed yet. Because your nervous system always notices what your thoughts try to ignore. The ninth sign is that nothing ever gets resolved. You bring up something important, something that genuinely matters to you. And somehow the conversation shifts, the focus changes, and suddenly you're the one explaining yourself, defending your emotions, justifying your reaction while the original issue disappears completely. And that's not miscommunication, that's redirection. Because confusion keeps you engaged. It keeps you trying to fix something that keeps moving, something that never actually gets addressed. And the 10th sign, and the most important one, is that something inside you feels off. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, consistently. A small discomfort, a subtle tension, a feeling you can't fully explain but can't ignore either. And most people dismiss it because it's not clear, because it's not logical, because everything else seems fine on the surface. But that feeling matters more than anything else. Because before logic, there is intuition. Before explanation, there is awareness. And even if you can't put it into words yet, your mind is already recognizing a pattern. And that pattern is telling you something is not right. And once you start listening to that, once you stop ignoring it, everything begins to change. Because now you're no longer just reacting. You're observing. You're noticing. You're aware. And the moment awareness appears, the pattern begins to break. Because manipulation only works when it goes unnoticed. And the moment you see it even slightly, it starts losing its power. And this is the part most people don't expect, because recognizing manipulation doesn't instantly feel like relief. It doesn't feel like clarity right away. Sometimes it feels like confusion. Sometimes it feels like doubt. And sometimes it even feels like loss, because the moment you start seeing things clearly, you also start realizing how much of what felt real was actually influenced. How many of your reactions weren't fully yours. How many decisions were shaped quietly without you ever noticing it. And that realization can be uncomfortable in a way you didn't expect. Because even if something wasn't healthy, it still felt real while you were in it. The connection felt real. The emotions felt real. The moments you shared meant something to you. And your brain doesn't separate what was real from what was manipulated. It remembers the feeling, not the full picture. And that's where the trap continues. Not in the person, but in the pattern that your mind got used to. Because your mind will try to go back, not because it was right, not because it was good for you, but because it was familiar. And familiarity is powerful. Your brain is wired to return to what it recognizes, even if what it recognizes caused confusion, tension, or self-doubt. It remembers the highs, the moments of closeness, the emotional intensity, the feeling of being understood without having to explain yourself. And slowly it begins to forget everything else. The discomfort, the uncertainty, the moments where something felt off but you stayed anyway. And that's how the cycle keeps pulling you back. Not through logic, but through memory, through emotion, through the parts of you that still want to feel what you once felt. And this is where most people get stuck. They believe they miss the person, but what they actually miss is the feeling, the version of themselves that existed in that connection. The version that felt more confident, more alive, more seen. The version that felt like they finally mattered to someone. And letting go of that doesn't just feel like losing someone else. It feels like losing a part of yourself. And that's why it's so hard to move forward. Because now it's not just about them. It's about you. About who you were in that space. About what you felt. About what you're afraid of losing. But here's the truth that changes everything. That version of you was never created by them. It was always yours. They didn't give it to you. They only knew how to bring it out. They knew how to activate certain emotions, certain reactions, certain needs. But the source of it was always inside you. And once you truly understand that something shifts in a way that's hard to explain but impossible to ignore, because now you realize that you're not losing something. You're taking it back. And taking it back isn't instant. It doesn't happen in one moment of clarity. It happens gradually, through awareness, through noticing, through being honest with yourself in a way that's sometimes uncomfortable. Not just about the good parts, but about the moments you ignored, the times you stayed silent when you wanted to speak, the times you explained things away just to avoid tension, the times you doubted your own thoughts just to keep things stable. Those moments matter because they show you the truth, not the version you wanted to believe, not the version that felt easier to accept, but what was actually happening beneath the surface. And once you see that clearly, you can't unsee it. And that's where your power begins to return. Not all at once, not dramatically, but slowly, quietly. You start noticing yourself again, your thoughts, your reactions, your emotions. You begin trusting your own perception again, even when it's not perfect, even when it's not fully clear yet. You stop needing constant reassurance. You stop over-explaining yourself. You stop shrinking just to keep things calm. And for the first time in a while, you start feeling like yourself again. But not the same version, a stronger one, a more aware one, a version that sees things earlier, understands things deeper, and reacts differently. And maybe the most important shift happens here. You stop looking outside of yourself for certainty, and you start trusting what you feel even when you can't fully explain it yet, even when it doesn't make perfect sense at first, because you realize something that most people overlook. Clarity doesn't always come before the decision. Sometimes clarity comes after you trust the feeling, and that feeling is not weakness, it's awareness. It's your mind recognizing patterns before you can logically explain them. It's your internal system telling you that something doesn't align. And once you start listening to it instead of ignoring it, everything changes in a way that's subtle, but powerful. You slow down. You observe more. You react less. You choose more carefully. You stop getting pulled into emotional cycles that don't serve you. You stop chasing validation that was never stable to begin with. And from that place, you don't just avoid manipulation. You recognize it early, in tone, in behavior, in timing, in small inconsistencies that most people overlook. And that's the difference that changes everything, because manipulation only works in certain conditions. It works in confusion. It works in emotional dependency. It works in self-doubt. But awareness breaks all of those conditions. It creates distance. It creates clarity. It gives you space to think instead of react. And from that space, you regain control. Not control over others, but control over yourself. Your decisions, your emotions, your perception of reality. And that kind of control is different because no one can quietly take it from you again. No one can slowly reshape your reality without you noticing. No one can influence you in the same way once you've seen it clearly even once. So, if any part of this felt familiar even slightly, don't ignore it. Don't minimize.